Oh, I'm gonna need to. Ah, I'm gonna need to. Hang on, let me edit this. I forgot to do it. I changed the screen resolution, but I didn't change my stream resolution. So I'm gonna have to. I'm just gonna have to edit a couple of things. This is won't be too fast. Did it start again? Okay, it started again. So there we go. My notepad is probably huge. Okay, that doesn't matter. Okay, so in stream, once it's up again, if you can let me know if it's better now. I think it should be better now. Let me actually look at the stream. Hang on just a second. This is my fault, by the way. What happened is that I changed my screen resolutions to match my stream resolution, but I forgot to change my stream resolution. So that's why things are really weird. Hopefully it should be better now. Okay, it's restarting now. Okay, so far so good. This should be better. Let me just see how much of the black border I got now. We won't like stop the show. I just want to make sure I get it right. I just want to see my own stream, which is taking a while to load. Okay, so the black border is gone though. Okay, so let's see if this is better. I'm going to start playing again. I'll keep an eye on the chat. So sorry, get back to where we were. So you're taking a third base. You're talking about your Dragoon positioning, or trying to remember.
Yeah. So I was just talking about how I like keeping a squad of Dragoons to either slow down his advancement, or kind of get ahead on any kind of vulture harass, or like general. I mean, in general, at this stage in the game, Terran is harassing with vultures and maybe laying mines around the map, and then you can use that squad of Dragoons to kind of preemptively clear the mines so you don't run into them later and just lose your forces.
This is something I see a lot, that this is a common mistake among Protoss players, and I do it myself, and that's just letting Terran mech move across the map without being contended. Like, if he can siege up his tanks like right in front of your natural without you doing anything about it, then you pretty much handed him the victory. You have to try and make the mech push as painfully slow for him as possible by continuing to have Dragoons being annoying with his mech push without trying to lose too many units at the same time. Another thing I want to point out is that Dirty Bag, surprisingly, like I've seen a lot of Terrans go for 2 command centers. I'm going to look at Terran for a little bit. And then they add like 2 or 3 factories to the 2 factories they already have, and they go for like a 2-base timing. This is not a 2-base timing. He's making his third behind this, and he's pushing before he's adding the factories, actually. So that's, I've never seen this before. This seems like a very weak push.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure what he's trying to accomplish in this game. I mean, I completely agree with you. Most Terrans will either add factories earlier and go for a strong 2-base timing, or if they were trying to expand, they would get that third command center maybe a bit even earlier than that. So, and then Dirty Bag right now is trying to do everything at once. He's expanding and pushing out. It's not going to be a bad push because actually, as you see, the army supply, I'm only slightly ahead, and then because, like I said, Protoss is always supposed to be about 1 base ahead. It's quite normal for Protoss to be a bit ahead in army value and supply, and the forces would still be considered fairly even.
It's kind of interesting. So I'm playing when you're talking, I'm pausing when I'm talking because I can't do 2 things at once. But but I wanted to pause there. It's kind of interesting to see what he was doing. I just want to point this out. You put out some really nice null wards to slow down his push, and he understood that and went through the center instead, and that was kind of sick, to be honest.
Yeah.
And he's actually got himself into an interesting position. I would say it's a nice position because he can attack your third, but it's also a position where he can be very easily surrounded. But it's very hard to find a good siege position on this map, it being so open. I thought at first when he was pushing out, he was just clearing out the front of his base so he could start to like make a defensive line to secure his third better, because the third was about to finish, but he was actually pushing all the way across the map, which I do find surprising with his small squad.
Game resumed. Yeah, so even though it's quite small, he did get set up quite well. He was able to lay mines along his flank, which are really effective in trying to defend against me, coming in from behind. This is just I guess an engagement.
Yeah, you did a good job, sandwiching. Fortunately, you lost some zealots to mines, which were unfortunate. And he's trying to attack you at the same time with vultures, which is not too uncommon. So leaving some units behind, I guess, is a good idea. Oh, he could be sneaking into your main base. Okay, he is going to sneak into your main base. Yeah, you're going to clean this one up. Fine. Sorry, I'm getting into caster mode now because stuff is happening.
Yeah. So as far as what Dirty Bag is doing, that's also a very good move to do. You know, is to always try to keep a separate set of vultures active apart from your main force to just keep doing harass. While I'm busy trying to defend against his main push, he was able to sneak vultures into my main. And even though it was only 2 or 3, he was still able to get a few probe kills, and that was good.
Also, another thing I noticed, I've seen some Terrans do what you're saying now, but they tend to pull like all the vultures from their main army and put them in there, and that's really bad because you want most of your vultures to stay with your army to tank up versus the zealots, but you can often do as much damage with 4 vultures as you can do with 8. I feel. As long as you get into the mineral line, you can do a lot of damage even with few vultures. It's just getting in there that's difficult. So you don't want to commit too many vultures sometimes. I guess it's kind of fantasy versus Flash there. I think Flash would only use small groups of vultures while fantasy would pull large groups.
Yeah, and I think that just comes down to personal preference. So at this stage in the game, after I successfully defended his attack on my 3rd, I felt pretty good because I was able to hold it off, and I knew I got my 3rd base up ahead of him. And even though he was able to set up his 3rd behind that, I saw that, and then as a result, like I said, because I always want to stay 1 base ahead of the Terran, I started putting up my 4th as well.
Yeah, just looking at that now. So you're actually, you're pushing into his natural. No, you're not. You're just poking, I suppose. So let's just pause a little bit and talk about what's happened. Just try and recap this because this is going to get into a more standard area. You're not going to make too many more sentinels. I think this is going to be. We are well into the mid game right now. So we have a 3-base Terran versus a soon-to-be 4-base Protoss. The Sentinels kept him at bay. Let's talk about a hypothetical scenario. Let's say he went for that first push. Let's say that was a 2-base, like 4-factory push, a more committed push. He would probably have had some more siege tanks and vultures with that push. What do you think would have happened? I know this is kind of speculation, but it's an interesting thing to discuss, I think.
So I think we'll actually see something more similar to that next game.
That's true.
So it doesn't even have to be a hypothetical, but basically, like my strategy in the beginning to set up into the mid game is to use those sentinels to kind of scout well and to see what he's doing. And if I had scouted maybe him throwing up earlier factories, going up to 4 or 5, seeing a massive units, then I would have stopped pro production to try to get out as many units and gateways as possible. And in this game, I was pretty much constantly producing probes for the entire first 10-15 minutes.
So probe production is kind of like your buffer. If you see, he's not getting a 3rd anytime soon, and you fly a sentinel in there, you see a lot of factories, like, okay, it's time to stop the probes, time to add a couple more gateways and churn out more units. I guess it's a proper response.
Yeah. So I mean, especially with the way resources, or I guess income, works in Starbolt compared to StarCraft 2, where I think probe management is even more crucial. You don't always want to be constantly making probes. I know a lot of players try to teach newer StarCraft players that one of the most important things is to have constant worker production, but that's not always the case, because if you're facing against an imminent attack, you don't want to be making workers at that point, especially in Starbolt, where after you get maybe 8, or after you get maybe 1 worker per mineral patch, every additional worker is going to give you less income than an additional worker in StarCraft 2.
Yeah, it feels like extra workers in Starbolt is like potential economy for the future once you get an expansion to transfer them to, and not as much income right now. So planning those probes or SCVs are more. Yeah, that's a very good point. Let's keep watching a little bit. I think I'm gonna finish this game though. It's a good game, so I think we want to finish this. I probably will pause less. So I also remember. Oh, here you go. You are attacking.
Yeah. So I guess you could pause here. As far as when you're attacking into a Terran engagement, I didn't do this attack too well, but basically what you want to do is you want to use the Dragoons to clear as many mines as you can and start soaking up tank shots. And after you clear the mines, do you want to kind of run in your zealots into the minefield, into the tanks? My zealots kind of got ahead of themselves. I mean, I took a few mine blasts from the zealots more than I should have, but in general, that's kind of what you want to do.
Good. Yeah, let's actually watch that again for a second. See if I can do that. So yeah, let's watch this engagement. I'm not gonna. You made a mistake, but let's just general. So you wanna. Oh, I need to remove that stupid voice every time I pause the game, but whatever. So yeah, like you said, you want to have the dragoons slightly, I guess, at the same line as the zealots in the beginning to pick off the mines, and then send in the zealots once the mines have started to clear up. So yeah, these are a little bit too far ahead. You're pulling them back a little, I see, to get more mines off, and then you move in here.
Yeah, and then I was able to catch him kind of out of position, especially with those tanks that were unsieged. So I got kind of lucky there.
Then he's trying to surround you with vultures. I think you could have placed more mines here when he was surrounding you, actually. Quite difficult feat to do, though.
So Dirty Bag does a really good job of having tank placement in his natural main. He only has 2 tanks, but they're positioned very well so that they were able to, basically stop me from going into his natural.
So I think he discovered, yeah, he has scanned your 4th base. So, yes, another question I was thinking about, actually I don't have to pause the game for this, is what's the step after, what's the next step? Like, you get more bases, you stop making sentinels, you start making, you keep making dragoons and stuff, you get upgrades for them, like both +1 and +2, and also speed and range. But what's the next tech choice in your preference?
Okay, so if you get to a point in the mid game where it's kind of stabilized, like maybe the Terran's just turtling up in his base trying to mass up a 200 army, then you kind of really need to tech to air, whether it's carriers or arbiters, and that's again also a personal preference. However, in this game I don't tech because it's actually quite close. I mean, I'm barely able to hold off his attacks and barely able to stay 1 base ahead of him. So I want to pour all my resources into making, a large ground army to kind of stabilize and defend any kind of pre-max supply attack. My macro is not too good right now. As you can see, I'm floating a lot of money, and I should be having.
We're not looking at that rsvp. We're not looking at that.
No, well, I mean, but my point is that like my goal in this game was to try to, put out a huge army because he is being quite aggressive, and I can't spare resources into taking to any kind of Stargate at this point.
One thing I have to admire Dirty Bag for is his attention to details. Like, I mean, seeing little things. A while back, sorry, I just have to comment on this because it's so amazing. A while back, he had a null ward on a SCV that was constructing a missile turret, and since the SCV constructing the missile turret was quite damaged and could be easily picked off, he halted the production and then switched SCV so you couldn't pick it off as easily. Like, just little things like that. That's incredible. Like, I would never have done that. And right now he's like constantly scanning to pick off your observers with the Goliath. That's so crucial to do as a Terran player, and I see very few Terran players do it, because as soon as you don't have any observers, like, you're going to take so many more mine shots. So it's very important.
The other thing I want to mention that I know that I feel Dirty Bag does extremely well is his mine placement. When you're moving out with your army and you have vultures along and you place mines, you do not want to put the mines in the path of your tanks. You want to put the mines on the flanks of your tanks. So a lot of Terran players would make the mistake of kind of putting the mines right ahead of the tanks where they will walk into, and that's bad because then I'll just run zealots into them. But Dirty Bag always puts mines on the flanks and just has a clear path, a mine-free path between his base and one of my bases.
Yeah, I see you're trying to pick up his reinforcements here, which is good. But yeah, like you're saying, like these mines here are good. Like, they're not too close to his tanks. And I also seen some really good Terran players that once they reposition their siege tanks to be like here, they would kill their own mines, so they can completely avoid any mine drags. And I also see, like you said, air, but you've also been going for High Templars, and I saw that in the other game we're going to look at today too. That you usually get some High Templars out.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a lot of gas. Since most of my army is going to, it's basically half dragoons, half zealots. I end up with a lot of gas.
Yeah.
And I guess High Templars is just a natural choice. Storm is it's decent. I mean, it's not as good as it is in PvZ, but it can still do a lot of damage to the Terran army, especially if they're careless and leave units clumped up.
Sorry, I just have to point this out. So we have Walter run by in the main. You are trying to pick up reinforcements here. You are trying to keep a tab on his army in the middle, and you're picking off at his fourth base with a sentinel at the same time. Starboy is great, man.
Yeah. Like I was talking about very back in the beginning, it's very useful to keep your sentinels alive, and because I was able to keep one alive, right now it's still really bothering Dirty Bag. I was able to keep an eye on.
Sorry, I gotta find a way to turn off this horrible sound. Oh, are you still there? rsvp. Oh, I think we lost rsvp. Yes, my Skype. Okay, I think his computer may have crashed. Sorry about that. We're gonna try and get him back again. Okay. Enable voice. Oh, yes, turn off the voice. Thank you. Are you still there now?
Hello?
Okay, there we go. Whew.
Yep, sorry, I don't know what happened. My internet must have cut out for a second.
Yeah, it seems so. I think I turned off the voice. Let me just... Oh, I just wanted to point out, like, there's a lot of stuff that's been going on at the same time, but if that sentinel... Oh, wow. He's gone again. Oh, come on. We all love internet. Yes, he has. Oh, I don't have to type that. He has earlier. Sorry about this. This is the logistics problem, which which is connected with having a guest. I think Skype is no. Let me just point out while we're waiting for him. Hopefully he'll come back. I'm not gonna boot him. If that sentinel would have been able to place out a couple of null wards with that energy while everything was going on, man, he would have killed so many SCVs right now. That would have been so sick. I can't move around the map. Let me see if I can get contact with him, see if he wants to restart the game, because he may have been booted out of it, and then there's no point in not dropping him and just restarting the game. Oh, he's back. You there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I seem to having some internet connection issues. Hopefully it'll stabilize.
Hopefully.
Crossing my fingers.
Will.
Game resumed.
Oh, I thought I had removed the voice. Whatever. I was just commentating that the sentinel, if it had put out a couple of null wards, you would have killed so many workers. But in the meantime, you are actually gonna See, this is another thing I want to comment on real quick. If you're still there. Is that I remember watching this game, and this group you have been observing is quite small, and I think any other Protoss player, or at least any lesser Protoss player, would have tried to kill this group a long time ago, because I saw your army size and like, you can kill this group easily. Why aren't you doing it? And I was thinking, well, you can comment this on yourself, of course, but I was thinking like, you don't really have to, because it's not threatening anything. It's not like it's really awkwardly positioned. And you really want to attack it once it's unsieges to minimize your losses. Right now you have so many units, it doesn't really matter. But I think any other Protoss would have just tried to kill it a lot sooner, and that would have just made the battle more cost effective for Terran.
Yeah, so there's two comments I want to make about that. So the reason why the size advantage is so different is because I was able to pick off reinforcements earlier on.
Yes, very important.
One of the most important things to do as Protoss is to not just have all your units in one control group in one area. I like having multiple groups of units just around the map, so I was able to use one to pick off reinforcements so he could not reinforce that position. The other thing is, like you said, the longer I wait and the greater size advantage I have over his army, the less losses I'll suffer when I clear it out. So if I had cleared it out earlier, it may have been I may have won, but it may have been a close battle. But now, because I have an overwhelming army over him, I'm going to be able to win without any loss, or with very little losses.
Yeah, it's very commendable of you to do that. So let's just watch this glorious battle for a second. And you don't even use your War Prism, actually.
Yeah, so the point of that War Prism is it has Zealots and High Templars. It's to just drop Zealots and basically storm the tanks or whatever I drop it on. And because I felt like I didn't really need it, I just didn't use it.
This is so unfortunate because this Nexus is so low on health. It's gonna get it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to pause there. So yeah, let's talk about, because I saw you commented on that in the forums. You know, if you drop out, if you have like two or three zealots and one or two high templars in a dropship, I mean in a war prism, what happens is that when you unload the zealots first, pretty much every single siege tank is going to shoot that zealot, and you have a 4-second cooldown pretty much on the siege mode zealots, siege tanks. So you have a lot of time to deploy some good storms after that without taking any shots at all, unless he has a lot of vultures. But you're still probably going to get a couple of storms off. So that's a nice technique there. I also see that you're going for a lot of Dark Templars after a while. Any comment on that, or was that just specifically for this game?
So I like using Dark Templars because if the Terran or even Zerg or any opponent is not careful, if they don't have detection at their base, it can really cause a lot of damage when lots of things are going on at the map. And I mean, in this game, there's been tons of fights all over the place, multiple fights happening at the same time. So if I can sneak a Dark Templar into its main or natural, then it's I mean, if he hasn't defended it yet, then it takes some attention away from the main battle, and if he doesn't notice it, then I get a lot of free SC kills.
Yeah, I think you're getting a couple of free hits off there with the Dark Templar in the midst of battle as well, because there's so much stuff going on. So that actually kind of, oddly enough, makes the Dark Templar slightly better in Starbow than in StarCraft 2, not just because of the tech route, but also because that more stuff is usually happening at the same time, which makes it harder to focus on killing Dark Templars.
And in this game, my Dark Templars really don't do too much damage because Dirty Bag is prepared. He has mines and turrets in his natural, so it's kind of hard to sneak, Dark Templars in. Yeah, he basically has mines and turrets all over the place, and I wasn't really able to do much damage in this game. But no, that's not always the case. So I mean, sometimes they can end up doing a lot of damage.
So we haven't really talked too much lately about this, what's exactly going on right now, but you have been able to safely re-expand to the base you lost. You've also taken this base, which is quite easy to hold once you have this natural on the. You should see on the. I'm talking about the 10 and 12 o'clock. I mean 10 and 11 o'clock positions, kind of. And Dirty Bag is kind of doing the same, just a little bit later on his side. And you're also trying to take the 3 o'clock position. It's kind of fun to have to look at the watch every time I say these things. But so it's kind of evolving into a split map scenario. Like you can see from the situation right now that you have map control, but you can't really do too much. It's very well defended, so it's not going to end anytime soon unless you have an incredible engagement. Because, or let me put it this way, he's not going to win anytime soon. You're probably not going to win anytime soon, but he's definitely on the back foot right now.
So this is definitely progressing into late game. As I was mentioning earlier, your late game goal is to kind of Stargate unit, whether it's a big ground army supported by a few arbiters, or maybe a carrier switch. In this game, I opted to go for arbiters. As you see, I have an arbiter tribunal up. I haven't actually started making arbiters because I think I'm a bit capped. But that was my intention, is to go make arbiters. I'm attacking into his natural. So I spent a lot of time dancing between his bases, and basically just trying to find a way to attack. He has tanks and defenses everywhere, and I guess I just decided that his natural looked like it was the weakest, and that's where I decided to attack.
Is it interface sounds? Sorry, that lady is incredibly annoying. I'm not going to remove everything here. Okay, yes, let me talk about this for a second, because I do enjoy how, like, you had a lot of your army here, and he was afraid of that. And then I think yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you saw that he was unsieged and kind of clumped up, so you wanted to just see if you can do some damage, and you actually, I don't think you intended to go for, this wasn't like a timing push you were waiting for. No, this was more of a spur.
No, there's no, I mean at this point in this game, there's really no such thing as timing. You're just kind of dancing and then trying to take advantage of maybe unsieged tanks, or a poorly defended area or not. And then I think a lot of players think that you always should be attacking resource bases, but that's not necessarily true, because the main or natural is also a great place to attack if you can attack either production factory or production buildings, whether it's factories or something that's really nice too. You don't have to just only kill mining bases.
Yeah, I was actually going to comment on that. So good thing you mentioned that. Like, there's kind of two kinds of damage you can do. You can kill his economy or you can kill his production, and that's one thing that, like, that's almost the same thing in StarCraft 2, especially like in the mid game, because you're usually on 3 bases and those bases are so close to the production. But in Starbow, you're so spread out that killing economy and production can be two very different things, and that's why we saw a lot of stuff we saw very often in Brood War, and we're seeing it more and more in Starbow, that you start to split up your production. Usually towards the early late game, you start to, like, Dirtybag would probably have been wise to throw up some factories a couple of minutes ago in his 8 o'clock base, so that an attack on the main like you're about to do now won't be as detrimental, because he won't have all his production at the same place. So like you said, even if his main base is mined out, it's still very useful to attack it.
Yeah.
And it's also, interestingly, I see a lot of times people don't really think about that too much, so they don't defend it as well as they do their expansions. They don't really consider that a viable option, and then all of a sudden, Dragoons are on top of the production facilities, and they're like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
He's incredibly good at defending with almost nothing, though.
That's true.
Like, I think his APM is really high. Yeah, it's pretty high. He's very good at doing all the little things. But I kind of, to be honest though, I really, it's quite impressive. Like you said, you're not the fastest player when it comes to like APM, but it's just impressive to see some of your decision making. I remember watching some games, I think it was from the qualifier, which you won, by the way, congratulations to that.
Thank you.
and just some of the decision making you made, like in the spur of a moment, just suddenly discovering, like, I should put my army over here, or I should do something like this, or I should switch to this tech, and that can be a lot more important than just being a Kespa macro bot, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So at this point, I think the game is pretty much over. I mean, he still has 3 mining bases, but I mean, I have the map. I was able to take out his main.
Yeah, he's trying to move all his production facilities to a safer location, but there we go. You're probably gonna take this 3rd base too, even though it's quite well defended. It's just not enough. Also, the reason why, like, I see the arbiters are on their way now, and you usually want to get arbiters a bit earlier than this. You can there are even some strategies where you can get arbiters really early, but that's probably not based around early sentinels. But the reason, like you said earlier, that the arbiters are late is because the constant back and forth earlier in the game, where no one was sure who actually was winning and losing, and when you're in a situation where you're constantly trading units, then taking to arbiters might be like the move you make, so you don't have enough units to actually hold an attack. So that can be a little bit scary. Man, watching Dirtybag defend, man, it's just incredible. Throwing up extra supply depots, surrounding the siege tank with the CVs. He's like doing everything he can to cling on. So yeah, this game is, like you said, basically over. Let me just let me make the ending anticlimactic, because this is not supposed to be a very. This is a really good game though, like, but it wasn't here to make an exciting cast. It was more for analytical purposes. So I think it's very interesting to see this game, how I would say little the Sentinels did, but it still kind of set you up for a good mid game. And what we're going to be looking at after this game... Oh, Stormo! Sorry, that was just awesome. What we're going to be looking at after this game is another game where Dirtybag... It's going to be same map, same opponent. I think even same position. It's really funny. But we're going to be looking at a game where Dirtybag is going to opt for a little more aggressive opening. And we're going to see how the opening of rsvp can deal with that. So let me go to the other overlay. I was going to say let me take a short break, but I'm not going to do that. We don't take breaks here. I don't have any commercials to play. So yeah, there we go. Let me get you into another replay. Anything else you want to mention as I'm trying to get another replay going?
Yeah, I'm thinking. So, I think the reason why Dirtybag lost this game is because.
Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna interrupt you for a second. Can you get back into the Starboard chat, because you got booted out of the party because of the disconnect? Just so I can start loading the game while we talk. There we go. You can keep talking now.
Oh, So Dirty Bag just kind of got set back when his initial attack on my third, didn't really do any damage, and I was able to hold that off. And I think one thing he could have done more, which he actually does a lot in his other games, is to have more vultures on the map early on and just either harass my units or just put mines all around the map and trying to regain map control from me. And 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 one of the reasons he actually wasn't able to get those vultures early on is also because of the sentinel opening. Because the sentinel opening forces Terran to get Goliath, then the Terran's going to have less vultures, which is another reason why it's kind of indirectly gives you more map control by forcing more Goliaths and less vultures from the Terran. So I think he may have even overcommitted on the Goliaths. I know he didn't even make that many, but having 3 to 4 Goliaths means you're not going to have those early 6 to 8 vultures on the map at the beginning of the game to either slow down my third or to harass my main and natural.
Okay. Yeah, those are some really good points. We're gonna. Oh, I need to switch the overlay. So we're gonna go into another game here, which is kind of funny because it looks like the exact same game because you're in the exact same positions on the exact same map with the exact same opponent, and the games are almost identical in length. So it's really hard for me to separate them here. But let me just. Sorry. Go ahead.
So this game is, although it's very very similar, it plays out a bit differently, and I think it'll be nice to be able to see this and like compare this with the other one and see the differences in decision making from both of us and the result on the end result of the game.
So those dreaded tasks you had from college, like compare and contrast, this will be one of those. I hated those. Well, I'm studied mostly math myself, so I avoided most of those because you don't compare and contrast functions. So.
Yeah, we can actually probably go through this replay.
Yeah, we can speed it up a little bit. So we're gonna have the same pylon, gateway, gas, cybercore, pylon, probably Stargate, maybe Nexus, maybe a Dragoon before Stargate. This is gonna depend on your scouting now, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I guess I can mention my exact build a bit more. It's standard. Pylon, gate, gas opening. You just continuously make probes. You make a core as soon as the gateway is done, and after you throw down a core, you're at about 15 supply. You put down your second pylon. You start your Kadarian Citadel, and then when your core is done is when when you can decide to make the Dragoon, the Nexus, the Stargate. I like to go Dragoon and then Stargate and then Nexus.
So let's see. Did you? No, you didn't see the factory before you left.
Yeah. Well, so I kind of cheated a bit. Wait. I'm not even there yet. Right.
No, you've been one round and now you're going back in again.
Oh, I missed that.
That's okay. I'm just looking at your vision and you've seen most of his base. You've been there once before. That's okay. We were going fast through this and you're looking at your... Actually, let me just talk about this for a second. I can't turn off that voice and it's the most annoying thing. If someone in chat knows how to turn off that voice, please let me know. So like you're saying pylon, gateway, gas, cybercore, pylon, Caldarian. I forgot about the Caldarian Citadel because I haven't played much Protoss and Starbow. But yeah, of course, that needs to be... Those are like the 4 or 5 elements that needs to come in place. And then after that, regardless of what you scout, you go Dragoon or Stargate or Nexus.
Yeah.
Seems fair. Yeah, okay, just want to sum that up. I see you going in for... oh, wow, voice crack. I see you going for a Zealot here. Because you're scouting the factory? No, it's earlier than that.
Oh, so the reason why I decided to get a Zealot is because he didn't wall in this game, and then one way to kind of do an even earlier poke or kind of aggression is to have a Zealot and Dragoon, which is which can have varying degrees of effectiveness, but at least it gives you some kind of early poke option. And the only reason why I did that is because I saw that he did not wall in.
So that's of course very optional. Some Terran players are a lot better at defending non-walls than others, but especially versus players might have a difficulties microing. If they have difficulties microing and they're stupid enough not to wall in, there's no reason you should make a Zealot, I suppose.
Yeah.
But like some really good players never almost walls in because they just can micro Marines all day long. Like I would always wall in. He's actually dropping a second. Ooh, wow. I love Dirty Bag, man. I'm just sorry, but his play is just so. He has like some of the I've seen. What was he playing? I was trying to think. I remember him doing some Pimpus play moments, but he can't be in any. Like he hasn't played that many tournaments. It was an ESL Cup we casted, and he just pulled off some crazy moves. Okay, so here's the small poke with the Zealot and Dragoon. You're gonna try and pick off the weakened ones. You actually, yeah, okay, you got one. And he got the Zealot, but you forced some SCVs off those. So Dirty Bag handling this really well, but his micro, slipping a little bit right now though with the 2 Marines there.
Nope.
Ooh, losing that Dragoon. So in the meantime though, because this is just micro, like, to any player who of less caliber than rsvp and Dirty Bag, like you probably don't want to engage for as long and try and micro and be cute. You just want to poke a little and see what kind of damage you can do and just get out of there. That would be my advice, I think. So let's just talk about your choices here a little bit, because that's more important right now, is your build order choices. So you still haven't seen, because you poked up there, so you saw a lot of his base, you still haven't seen a command center. So you are getting the Stargate first and the Sentinel on the way before your Nexus. I guess that's the reason?
Yeah. Because so when I poked into his base, I saw a lot of Marines. I think I saw, the fact of the tank, and one of the more popular Terran openings is just do some kind of Marine tank vulture, early aggression, and I wanted to get that Sentinel to be able to, pull that off. So I delayed my Nexus by a bit, and then also to get earlier, units like, my second Dragoon and further Dragoons.
Yeah, that makes sense. No command center means be careful, but I think it still is very important for Protoss players to, even if Terran is on one base, as long as there's not like a super cheesy like Turak or something, or like a proxy factory with Wolfers or stuff, I still think you should get a fairly early Nexus, because just staying one base on one base in Terran is usually not good at all.
Yeah.
And just feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm also seeing that Sentinels here have 6 damage, and I thought they were nerfed to 5, but maybe that never happened. Maybe that's just something we talked about.
Yeah, I don't remember. But there's still 6.
Yeah, because this is quite a recent game. I see the mines behave like the new mines. Oh, I love how you just pick off the weakened one right away.
Yeah. So now with the Sentinel, although he has more than enough Marines to hold it off, I'm still using it to kind of scout his base, and he actually does a great job of hiding that starport. I'm trying to see what he has, but I don't think I actually was able to see that.
I actually didn't notice that the first time I watched this game, so that's very interesting. And I think, yeah, the Sentinel does outrange the Marines ever so slightly. Yes, with 1. So you can be very cute and try and micro, but remember they have very little HP. Oh, and I wanted you to chase him into the null ward so bad, but you remembered just too late, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so this game, Dirty Bag decides to defend against Sentinels. He actually scouts it again with his SCV, so he saw it coming and he was able to defend with a Starport and Vikings, which is good because Sentinels can't attack air. Again, even though he has anti-air, I decided to keep going with air of my own to try to kind of battle for air superiority. A lot of times the Terran would just make one Viking thinking that that's enough to make them safe from all Sentinel harass, and I want to kind of prove them wrong. So I'm actually getting a Scout. Scouts are actually they're probably one of the least used units from Food War, but I guess I found kind of a use for them because they're useful to go with your Sentinels to defend against Vikings if the Terran thinks that they just need one to.
Yeah, you definitely do not want to go Corsairs versus Vikings. You want to go for a Scout. So and the Scout can also shoot ground too, and with the Viking tickle it can be quite annoying. And I really like that mind game of yours there, that and like you said, one Viking, I'm safe, and then you're like, nope, you're not, and that can throw off a lot of Terran players, and you can keep being annoying with your air units. So yeah, one Scout can take out like 2 or 3 Vikings. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, I think with proper kiting and micro, though, the battle is a bit closer. But then again, Protoss also has null words to go with the Scouts. So right now, I'm still harassing with that, and I get a good shot off.
That's an awesome shot you get off. So yeah, he actually saves and repairs that Viking. Man, he's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
But
actually, let me just go for a little bit of hype. Tomorrow's going to be the Star Wars Ladder tournament, and although Dirtybag, Dirtybag was qualifying to play in the Invitational qualifier, but he did not want to play in it for various reasons that I'm not going to get into now. But he has signed up for the ladder tournament, so we will see Dirtybag there, and yourself, of course. So I'm very excited to see both of you in that tournament.
So from my side, the game is still going to play out pretty similar to last one. I'm taking my third.
Yeah.
I'm pecking.
But if we look at his side here, he's adding a third factory. He's probably going to be adding a fourth. You know, the fourth factory, I guess it depends a little bit on your tech, because he was forced, or he wasn't forced, he chose to defend with Stargate. And that Stargate's going to make it worse to get 4 factories, I think. So maybe 3 factories is the magic number if you get a Stargate as well. And also he's very good at using overcharge. And the more overcharge you use, the less factories you need.
Yeah, so in this game, usually if the Terran doesn't have Vikings, I would be able to, scout out the entire Terran base. But because he did, I actually didn't see his attack coming at all. I was too busy trying to poke with my Sentinel and scout that I wasn't able to scout it. So that was a very good move by Dirtybag to use that Viking and to change his strategy up a bit. Instead of going for a third, he just goes straight out for like a two base attack.
So I see you're doing what you said earlier, stopping pro production. You're trying to churn out as many units as possible. One of the weaknesses here that you didn't see this attack is that you only have 2 gateways, I guess.
Yep.
And considering your money right now, that's kind of bad.
Yeah. Again, my macro slips a bit. I should be having more gateways at this point. But I mean, as far as strategy goes, now that I realize it, I'm going back to my plan, which is, I mean, as you can see, I used what little Dragoons I had to delay the push as much as I can, so kind of kiting him all the way back to my base. And now I just have to, try to grow up gateways and
Yes.
units as fast as I can.
That's a really important point we talked about earlier. Is you didn't just let the push walk all the way across the map without being contended. You tried to delay it for as long as possible, and he's mismicroing a little bit here, bringing siege tanks a little bit too close. But he's actually going to get away with it, which is quite bad. So another thing I want to mention too. Oh, you're actually going to attack with the Dragoons here. I was about to say you shouldn't, but that's okay. But another thing I want to mention too, in general, Protoss battles, it depends a little bit from battle to battle, but in general, you're going to have a mix of Dragoons and Zealots, especially in the mid game. And once all the Zealots are dead, if you haven't won the battle, that's the time to start push out with the Dragoons, unless you have incredible superior Dragoon numbers, because the Zealots are the ones that takes the shots, and Dragoons are the ones that deals the damage. So once the Zealots are dead, you want to keep the Dragoons alive and reproduce Zealots. You're agreeing. Okay, good. I just want to make sure you're agreeing to stuff like that. It's so sad to see that Nullward just being out of range from that siege tank. But again, the air superiority is kind of coming into. You're getting. I thought you were getting another scout.
Don't know if I did or not, but I'm still making air units because again they're great. I mean, he has to. If I continue making air units, he has to continue making anti-air, which is not his ideal composition. He just wants to really make tanks and vultures. Is pretty much what he wants to do.
I actually know Hyder has been experimenting with going for a more. I think that's versus Sir, going for a more mech plus air, like mech plus Banshee Viking, and making that work. And with the new Banshee now, I think he might be able to make it work better too.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see.
There's some very interesting thought. There's a lot of thoughtfulness going on. That's why I'm really excited about. Okay, hang on a second. So I would say you're attacking with an inferior force right now, but I guess the point of this attack, well, you want to break the contain, but you mostly just want to clear off the front forces, so he can't like shoot your workers and your nexus, so you can only like stay behind, so you can breathe a little bit.
Yeah, so in situations like this, I think it's always better to trade armies as often as you can, because the larger the Terran army gets, the harder. I mean, the stronger the Terran army pretty much grows in power exponentially, whereas your army just kind of grows linearly. So that's why I wanted to attack often. Just trade forces, even though I know I probably could not have completely, wiped out all his forces.
It's very interesting. I haven't really thought too much about that, so that's a very interesting mark. He's actually going to drop your main base. He's being incredibly annoying this game, and he's getting his third behind this as well. So, and he's harassing your third as well. But you're doing a good job. Well, he's actually pushing back his contain. I remember when I saw this first time, I saw it from the contain point of view at this point, and I remember him scanning, seeing your army, and then just pulling back because the army you had, he just saw that he would crush his contain. So he did, and that's a sign of a very good player, is that if he sees that he's trying to pick a fight he can't win, he should just try and move safely out of there instead of taking it.
Yeah, so at this point in the game, Dirty Bag is in a very good position. He was able to get his third set up faster than mine. Although I got my third down, he was able to start mining fully from his before I did. And he was able to, successfully harass me, push me around. And then right now, I'm finally starting to be able to clear things out, although he's still in my third.
Yeah, I was kind of sad that there were no chrono boosts on that cannon, but still can't pay attention to everything at the same time. But
Yeah,
I like that you get that Viking is very important, because now, like, you don't know this and it's hard for you to know, but you can actually right now bring in your Sentinel, your Scout, and just start picking off siege tanks, because he has no anti-air whatsoever. But it's kind of hard for you to know that, of course.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the great things I like about this kind of PvP and Star Wars. There's always lots of battles going on, and like to be a really good player, you have to be able to focus on everything, and of course that's really hard to do.
So this is a very nice comeback for you here. Sure, he's shutting down your third. He's actually shutting it down real good. But you're pretty much picking off his third as well. So you're bringing yourself somewhat back. And the Scout is doing... I like that you're keeping the Scout and the Sentinel on his enforcement path. So he's going to have to go through area units to defend his third base. That's quite neat.
Yep, and then like I was saying before, just getting one or two air units forces the Terran to have to, keep getting anti-air. And I mean, most Terran players just are used to only making tanks and vultures, and if they only make tanks and vultures, then they're not going to be able to defend against the few air units I have.
Yeah, and like Goliaths and Vikings, they're of course excellent anti-air units, but they're very bad versus Dragoons, so that's why they don't want to make them. Man, these vultures are annoying, and a Plenty I think is going to take this base down actually.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Kind of trade bases here. I think he should be able to.
Yeah, he should be able to take it down. It takes forever for vultures to kill any buildings. Oh, a nice little null ward going off there. So right now, oh, you're getting a fleet beacon. I guess what's that for again?
So I wasn't sure what I was thinking. It might have been going for carriers, or it might have been even going for the speed on scouts. Because at this point I noticed that he wasn't really responding to my small air pressure well. I thought that it may be better if I expand that and make even more air units.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think you ended up with speed. Yeah, you're going for speed scouts now. My question sounded a bit dumber there. I know what the fleet beacon is for, but I was wondering what he was using it for in this game. Dirty Bag again is going to try and push out. He's not abandoning his third completely. He's trying to make one behind this, and that's another, like, this is general StarCraft stuff. It's just when you push out, expand behind it. Day 9 taught you that, hopefully. Unless you're going for an all-in, of course. But if you're just poking, you should expand behind it, because attacking his expansion is so difficult when you're trying to defend at the same time.
Yeah. So I think the best part about what Dirty Bag is doing now is just the fact that he's so active in attacking, and constantly being aggressive, attacking at multiple places at once. He knows I have air, but even though he knows I have air, he's still dropping units into my main, knowing that although I will eventually defend it, it's still going to be able to cause some damage or take my attention away from his real attack.
Yes, that's a very good point. He is, and that is very difficult for a Protoss player to deal with. So that's a tip for you Terrans out there, I suppose, even though we're trying to focus. Well, we can focus on whatever. But it is important to see this from a Terran point of view as well. So what Dirty Bag is doing now is he's reinforcing his position. He's getting his third base back up again. And this is something I would have liked. This is very difficult to do. And you're almost doing it now. You're bringing out the. Let me actually see what's happening with this Dark
Game
Templar.
resumed.
He just scanned though. Oh wow, just going around the edges. I like that with the Dark Templar. Oh, that's so close.
Yeah.
He was unsieging the moment he could have shot it, I think. Because I think you were barely in vision, but he was actually unsieging right there. You're lucky. But
Game
my point
paused.
is actually what you're doing right now is that you're seeing his big push. You're not too scared by it. Like, of course you're scared about losing, but you're actually taking the opportunity to send out a Dark Templar and to send the air units to the third base, it seems, to see if you can do any damage there. And that's
Yeah.
and that's very commendable that you can like be able to focus. You know, if he's pushing, maybe he's expanding and not just thinking I have to defend, I have to defend, I have to defend, because that's kind of the mindset you get into.
Game resumed.
So again, I'm using my dragons to try to always pick off mines whenever possible. I think one mistake I make is not making the zealots and dragons evenly. So right now he's able to get into my main and with a bunch of vultures, and all I have are just zealots and templars and not enough dragons to kind of defend against the vultures there. So,
Yeah, it was kind of an unfortunate way of splitting your army at the moment. I think it was kind of almost random, like not random, but like yeah, that's just kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, so I was able to get into my air units and cause a lot of damage there, which is good. But he basically killed my natural, and now he's in my third as well.
Yeah, so this is looking a bit more grim than the last game. You did force him to stop mining at the third. I don't think you're going to take it out. And I also like the fact that you're trying to, you know, flank reinforcements with your main army instead of engaging his. And he is also... let's talk about this for a second.
Paused.
I think he could have ended the game right now. I think he could have pushed his main army up and killed your main base and maybe ended it. But he's right now he's in such a good position that it's safer to just pull back and just gather up his forces, kill the stray units you have that are trying to kill off his reinforcements, and then go for another push. That's a more sure victory.
And he's not even really abandoning all his attacks. He still has one in my third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just talking about the main contained outside your natural, but yeah, that's true. So, so I think he could. I almost think he could have. I guess he wants to keep a tabs on that Dragoon force. It is a force to be reckoned with if he leaves himself vulnerable. It's not that big of a force versus his main army, but you know, if he leaves his main army, ooh, and he actually saves the third base as well. So yeah. So you talked about one thing you could have done differently was having a different ratio of zealots dragoons during that engagement. Anything else to get you out of this predicament?
There wasn't too much I could do. Again, like you always want to try to cut off reinforcements. You know, attack from multiple sides. I guess in terms of tech choices, I was going for high templars, and maybe if I had gotten them a little earlier, and maybe if I had Storm to help defend against the first vultures that came into my natural, I might have been able to save it. But other than that, Dirty Bag explained this very well.
Yeah, I remember looking at the production tab, seeing Storm was finishing, but not just complete as he was in your natural. And that's unfortunate when you had those high templars, and I think he picked some off too. So you're gonna spot his push here. You're gonna try and flank. No, you're not. You're just gonna stay behind a little. But again, you know, forcing him to siege, forcing him to not push as fast as he wants to. Always a good thing to do. What do you? Let me ask you another question.
Paused.
Like, if you scout a push, you see a lot of siege tanks. You see him sieging up. You push back your dragoons, and you wait a little bit. I sometimes want to start attacking after like 10 seconds because I think in my head he's probably unsieged now.
Well, so there's no reason to guess. You should have either an observer in his base, or even if he's clears out your observers, you can always just send out one zealot to see if it instantly gets blown up.
That's true, though.
It doesn't.
Very good point. Just play it safe. Yeah, it's just my wishful thinking, I suppose. But this is really nice. Wow, you're catching all of his siege tanks out of position. That's actually incredibly nice.
Yeah, and then my high templars arrived a little too late to that battle. If they were there at the beginning, that probably would have been better. But I still come out slightly ahead.
That's very
But
cost-effective engagement.
but the problem is that he's killed my third, and he's now on a lot more income than I am. My natural actually just came up again. It
Oh
was down
yeah.
all that time.
Yeah, I
So
think you were
even though
distant mining for a while there. I remember actually.
yeah, so even though I'm winning the battles, he has a much stronger economy, and I think he's still in better shape right now.
So yeah, you're gonna put some pressure on this third. You're gonna kill a lot of workers, and he's probably gonna hold this eventually. He might lose the third, and he's sending out some more vultures, which is and a nice little wow. That's a crazy cute drop. But again, your air superiority can hold it off. It takes a while, but you can hold it off with that scout. Sorry, mine. Oh, never mind. I think we are. We talked about what you could have done to not get into the position you are in right now. Right now, your position is just slightly better than it used to be because you got that third base, but you're still very low on mining. You're still very few units, and he has. Well, right now your income shouldn't be that different actually. No, and your harvesters is not. I'm going to take that back. I was going to just hand him the game right now, but that's actually not as obvious at the moment. So in a situation like this, you're very low economy. You're both very low economy. Let's talk about that for a little bit, because that's a situation I see a lot of in Starbow actually, where both players are so much at each other's throats that they end up like just scraping together whatever they can, even though you're far into the game. And this is exactly the situation. What do you have to think about in that kind of a situation? Or
So
consider, I guess, is a better word.
yeah, so at this point, I kind of think it's a good idea to try to make various different units so you can always take advantage of anything he's weak against. So right now, I still have some air units up. I have Dark Templars. I'm getting High Templars. So like, let's say he has he only has ground or not. Then I have my air. If he decides to get a lot of Goliaths, then just having like a variety of different options open, and not just spending all your money on just having a lot of dragoons.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that. You know, like trying to get some, like you want cost-effective harass, like air units, Dark Templars. Like you don't want to go for a Reaver drop now. Like that's way too costly. You want to try and sneak in whatever little you can. Also, I guess your engagements, you have to be very careful what battles you pick or not when you have so few units and so little production. I love how they actually fixed it now that you have. Oh no, there's actually gas left here, but you can actually mine out. Assimilators keep giving gas after they're mined out now in Starbow. That's actually quite new. We tried to do that for a while and it just didn't work. So yes, Dark Templar is going to work now. Actually going to do some damage because even though Dirtybags has missile turrets, he just doesn't have any units to defend with. Well, he has. He's just being lazy actually. So that's kind of lucky for your part. Okay. Wow, the SCV is taking out the Dark Templar. Okay. Sorry, I'm into casting mode now almost, but there's not that much to say about exactly what's going on except what you just said about what type of units you make and what types of battles you pick, I guess. And trying to get another base up, I guess, is very, very important.
Yeah.
You can't kill him, and he probably can't kill you. So trying to get an edge somehow, get it back into a normal game. Let me speed things up a little bit. Did I speed things up? Yes, I did. So again, the scouts want to do damage, don't want to lose them. Oh, that's unfortunate. But I still kind of like what you were doing there. Like you were seeing, can I pick up a siege tank? And unfortunately, he was so well prepared that you lost one.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, at this point, he was able to retake his third much faster than mine, and now he has a sizable army advantage over me.
Yeah,
And
I guess that's a very good point that he actually had more income than you for a long time now.
I think this game is, is about to be over. So, I guess in terms of how this game played out differently from the last one is that Dirty Bag was basically just much more aggressive this game than last. I pretty much did, similar builds and strategies. I used similar units, but this time Dirty Bag dropped a lot more in my main, even though I had air superiority. He harassed my third much more with vultures, and especially with that early two base kind of timing attack. was able to, cause a lot of damage.
So here's the. I saw you just kill a ton of workers with that storm drop, and storm dropping I guess is another very cost-effective way of harassing. I would have liked to see you come back with the High Templars maybe to defend against this, but that's just me. Like I'm not you. Like I'm not as good as you. So it's kind of hard to say now. So you're abandoning the space.
Yeah, I think at this point, mean, everything I did was, a little too late.
Well, it's not possible for you really to do anything on time because his economy is better than you, so you can't produce like faster than he can. Like right now, your income is nothing, so this is you have to do. Let's just talk about this for a small second too, because I don't know, this is not the biggest issue, but okay, so he killed every single thing you got. You still have units, he still have units. What do you do?
Well, at this point, I think I know I lost, but I'm just just hanging on. I'm just bringing my units to attack him one last time. Maybe if I can catch his units off guard somehow, because I still have a few units that have a lot of damage potential. Like I have 3 or 4 High Templars. If he clumps up all his units and I get some good storms off, maybe something miraculous can happen. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely. As long as you have High Templars, things can happen. But yeah, they didn't. So you got some nice storm drops again. But yeah, this I think we're gonna wrap this game up because there we go, GG. Let's go back to our wonderful overlay. Starbo, this needs to be in a tournament soon. Well, guess what, Arson Trick? It's going to be a tournament tomorrow. So let me just hype that up a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more analysis after that, and then we'll go to some questions and answers. But tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. CET on Base Trade TV, there will be a Starbo Ladder Cup, the first event of the Starbo Ladder Cup. There will be many more to come. Well, the next one will be in 2 weeks, actually. And what basically it is that if you have a certain number of ladder points on the Starbo ladder, and you can go to starbomod.com for ladder. If you have a certain number of ladder points, you can qualify for the Starbo Cup. It's an open bracket as long as you have enough points. And whoever gets high up on the high up in these events, in these Starbo Ladder Cup events, will gain certain number of what I've called Starbo points, for the lack of a better word. And after 3 or 4 of such events, the 8 players with the most Starbo points will be invited to the final event, which will have a prize pool. I don't know the size of it yet. We are going to try and get some sponsors. We're also so we're going to try and hype that up a little bit. It's probably not going to be like Starbo Invitational prize pool. Like I'm thinking somewhere between $50 and $200, I think, depending on if we get sponsors or not. But that's actually we're trying to reward. Basically, we're trying to reward players for laddering and using the ladder system. So sorry, I just had to plug that for a little bit since there was a question about it. But I think this is anything to sum up both of these games and the strategy that we have looked at.
Yeah. So basically, to summarize, for like PvT, I really like opening with Sentinels because it just gives you so many options in terms of both being on the offensive and like defending against things and scouting, and to keep that pressure on the Terran throughout the game so that he has to constantly worrying about air units, because again, like the general PvT, especially in Brood War TVP, you did not have Sentinels, so Terran really had no reason to make any anti-air except for maybe against shuttle harass, but that's not as big as Sentinels, of course. So this kind of opens up another dimension and allows for a lot more like smaller scale battles where you may have air units harassing in one place or like picking off units somewhere, and other battles going on. As far as the Terran side, the like general Terran goal in the TVP is to kind of build up a large army while constantly harassing, whether it's with vultures or with drops in the main. Dirty Bag did that very well in the second game, constantly dropping in my main while harassing my third with vultures. So that's why he was able to gain an advantage and pull that off.
It is a very interesting metagame switch that toss air is now more viable early game versus Terran. So that's something to look out for. I'm also going to try at some point to get one of the better Terran players on this show, so we can look at this kind of this matchup at least from a Terran perspective, and we'll of course throw in some Zerg there as well. Um, I want to open up for some questions and answers now. If you have any questions for RSVP in the Twitch chat, this is the time to ask questions. He knows a lot about most matchups, a lot more than I do. So if you are struggling with something in Starbow, like you can never win versus a certain race, or there's a certain build, or anything like that, just type it in the chat. I'm going to ramble a little bit more because I know there's a delay.
Yeah, I mean, so although I'm playing almost all Protoss now except for Zerg and Zerg vs Protoss. When I first started playing Starbow, I was playing all random, and I do have some experience playing all the matchups. So it's I have an idea about the other non-Protoss matchups as well.
Yeah, so that's going to be useful. Let's see if there's any questions coming in. We have the grand number of 28 viewers. Okay, the first question coming in: have you ever considered Corsair Dragoons against Terran?
So I guess the only reason why Corsair Dragoon works is because of the Corsair's ability Disruption Web, which actually was only recently added, I believe, right?
Yes, that is true.
Yes. Yeah. So now that it has been added, I'd love to play around with it. It's just one strategy that I guess is a bit micro intensive, so that's the only like hesitation I have against it. There's really nothing like too great about Corsair. Okay, so like in PvZ you have Corsairs that could hunt overlords, could scout, could defend against mutas. In PvT, Corsairs really have no reason, like, no use other than just that disruption web. So it's not or there's nothing really super enticing about that strategy other than it's kind of cool to use disruption webs against big tank lines. But I mean, I would like to try it and see how it goes.
Another thing to remember too is that the Disruption Web in Starbow is a channeling ability. So if Corsair is using Disruption Web, he can't do anything else while he does it. And that's a nerf to Disruption Web, but as a compensation, we made the whole Disruption Web area bigger. So it's a little bit. So it's even more micro intensive.
Yeah.
So next question: is Sentinel the best way to scout in PvT?
Yes. Air units, of course, are always great units to scout with, because if you don't have that, your only other option is Observer, which works as well. But I mean, Sentinels can also attack and defend, whereas Observers can only scout. So that's why I prefer going for Sentinels before Observers. But if you choose not to go Sentinels, if you like doing standard ground play, which is fine too, I would advise getting an early Robo just for Observers, and not only scouts but also helps you defend against mines.
Yeah, that's more the Brood War approach, the more standard approach. A very interesting question that we actually have been discussing in the development team too. Do you think the splash of spider mines should be increased to make mine drags more useful and the mines more deadly too?
I think part of the thing with mines, one of the biggest reasons why they seem a lot more effective in Starbow compared to Brood War is just that the whole AI behind having vultures be able to move, kind of more smoother and be able to lay all their mines. In Brood War, it was really really clunky. Unless you had like perfect mastery of the magic box technique, which I don't want to explain right now, but basically, it was very hard to get all your mines to lay, or all your vultures to lay mines at once. And like if you just select all your vultures and like try to lay mines at one area, you'll probably end up laying like 2 or 3 mines. Whereas in Starbow, if you did the same thing, you'd probably be able to successfully lay mines with every single vulture. So it's a lot easier to use in Starbow. And this is something that's, although it may seem that like that vultures and mines are very strong, I still want to play with it a lot more. I mean, I played hundreds of games, but I still don't think I've had enough experience to really say from a balance standpoint whether it's too strong or not.
Well, yeah, I get this is more like, I guess, your personal preference more than the balance standpoint. I think another thing to consider is that if we increase the splash, like the Brood War mines have more splash or a bigger splash radius than the Starbow mines, and the reason it is smaller in Starbow is, like you said, because it's much easier to place them. And And what, like, sure, if the splash radius is bigger, it's gonna be easier to mind drag, but it's also gonna be much better to trap dragoons with mines than it currently is as well. So it's not gonna be, it's probably gonna be worse for the Protoss than better for the Protoss, in my opinion. We're gonna have an off topic here, but that's okay. Blink Stalkers in PvP. What's your opinion about that?
So I actually have not played too much PvP.
Oh, that's
so I
true. You
can't-
play
yeah.
CvP.
Yeah, that's right. I play ZVP, and I've played a few games of PvP earlier on, but unfortunately, I didn't really mess with Blink Stalkers that much, so I actually don't really know. If you have like a replay or something, and you post it to either the Starbowl forums or like maybe even Reddit, I'd be glad to take a look at it and just comment on there.
It's also, let me comment a little bit about Blink Stalkers in PvP. I haven't seen it too much myself. I know there's been some talk about it, but we have increased the cost of Stalkers in the recent patch, if I'm not mistaken. See, what happens with patching in me is that we discuss a lot of stuff, and then when I read the patch notes, I just glance over and like, oh yeah, we discussed that. Oh yeah, we discussed that. And then sometimes my brain doesn't connect what did we actually discuss versus what is actually in the patch. So I'm going to say things and it's not there because it's something we discussed, but we never actually put it in there. But I'm pretty sure we increased the cost of the Stalkers to make, because it was going a little bit too strong. But one of the things that some players seems to underestimate or overestimate is the toughness of the Stalker, because they're used to Stalkers from StarCraft 2 being relatively tough, and the Stalkers in Starbowl are really weak. So I see a lot of Terran players, at least, inching their siege tanks forwards towards Stalkers when they're blinking into their main base, when you can just unsiege an A move and just kill them because they're really weak. So that's an important thing to remember. Same with PvP, I think. As long as Dragoons can actually get some shots off of the Stalker, I think they can do quite well, but it's, of course, the mobility versus the strength that's always there. Another question: we'd like to remove SmartCast on Vultures to compensate. I guess. What is your take on the SmartCast discussion? That's been a huge debated topic here.
I mean, I'm in favor of SmartCast. I don't really think a game should make it harder on you just to make things harder on you. By making the game easier. Like, okay, I think a lot of people like games to be difficult, but I think removing SmartCast artificially makes it difficult, whereas if you keep SmartCast in, there's always other things to use your APM on. There's always other things to increase the difficulty, rather than having some kind of like technical barrier such as removing SmartCast. And by keeping SmartCast in the game, I think it just makes the game like more fun. I mean, I like back in Brewer, it was very frustrating to have to like lay mines carefully and like try and like select your entire group of vultures. Click lay mines, and you end up only getting 1 or 2 mines off. So I do like SmartCast, and I don't think that removing it is a good way to deal with balance issues, if there are any balance issues with them right now.
Okay, thanks for your answer. There seems to be coming in a lot of questions. Just let me know if you have to go, but I'll keep asking them as long as you keep answering them.
Oh yeah, I'm fine. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a long one from Sony here. Sony is actually the admin who's administrating the tournament tomorrow. Just so you should get to know him a little bit. Since PvZ ZVT has some specific issues moving into the late game, what is your opinion on this? Should Terran have overcharge removed completely, or have to choose between a reactor or using overcharge on it? I guess that's more of a development question. I don't know. Well, you can answer it if you have any opinions about that.
I always like having more options in the game available. So I don't like it when things get removed from the game, because it kind of like limits your options. And that's one of the things I didn't really like about StarCraft 2 balance. I don't know if I should be talking about that or not, but I feel like every single I feel like every single patch they kept removing abilities and removing not spells, but like for example, in like Wings of Liberty, they like slowly took away like the High Templar energy upgrade, and things just seem to be removed from the game, and it just limits options. And I like when there are more options open, just maybe perhaps balanced in some other way.
Yeah, I think when it comes to overcharge, let me talk a little bit about this, because one of the issues that we've been seeing is that scan comes in too early in the game compared to Brood War, and it limits a lot of early aggression versus Terran. And what we've done recently to address that issue just ever so slightly is to have orbital commands start with less energy. They're also a tad cheaper now, but that really doesn't compensate for it because 25 energy less, that takes a long time to regenerate, much more than it takes to harvest those minerals. But we might look into. I actually suggested that once you upgrade your orbital, you can call down SEVs and you can overcharge but scan unlocks later. Like maybe you need an eBay or some um, uh, logical structure to unlock the scan ability. That has been discussed a little bit, but it hasn't been implemented yet. I don't know if it will be implemented, but that's just something we've been talking about. And that upgrade to remove the energy cost from scan, maybe we shouldn't have that upgrade, to be honest, so that you still have to choose between scanning and overcharging towards the late game. But it's really a balance issue as well, how well the production works. Oh, he was actually talking about vultures don't have smartcasts in Starbow, and if they were supposed to have smartcasts.
I guess there might be some confusion over what SmartCast exactly is.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess technically, yeah, they don't have SmartCast in the fact that you lay multiple mines. I think what my point was that the just it's just everything's smoother. Things are just less clunky in Starbow, and you're able to lay more mines. And my point is, I like the way things are. I like the fact that vultures behave the way they do and can lay the mines that they do. Um, Maybe if anything, if people play more and decide that vultures are too strong, then maybe either the damage or blast radius of spider mines can be changed. But I like the current implementation of SmartCast.
Okay, thanks for that. Uh, LA Loco is going into touch the area here. He's talking about your games in the Starbow Invitational, but he's talking about early pressure PVC using chrono boosted gateway units, and what you think. I guess I'm trying to rephrase his question here to something that's. But I guess he's asking about how to defend, or like how effective it can be and how to defend versus it.
Um, so there's really kind of two types of chrono boosted gateway pressure. One is basically pre-speed zealots, and one is post speed zealots. The games I played against TT1, he used mostly like a speed zealot timing, and then chrono boosted gateways to get out a lot of speed zealots pretty fast. That's very effective for multiple reasons. One is um, it's effective against one of the most dangerous Zerg strategies, which is to open with early Hydra pressure. The other thing is that if I open with something like Mutas, which is what I did against the games against TT1, even though Zealots can't shoot up, it takes a while for Mutas to kill Zealots, and he was still able to do a lot of damage and force my Mutas to stay at home defending rather than harassing his base. So that's definitely a very strong strategy. I hope I answered your question.
Another thing I've seen a little of that I wish I could see more of from Zerg players in general is just the SimCity, especially with versus that. Oh, did I skip your question? I'll get back to that, Damon, in just a second. Uh, but another thing I'm seeing here is because especially versus that kind of solid pressure after speed, you have time to like your macro hatches should really be in your natural or maybe your third and making up a wall in SimCity. You can make a small gap for a fat queen and put him in hold position in there, and you can hold off a lot of zealots that way. It's something I saw a lot in Brood War, and I see less of in Starbow. Okay, that's a very general question here. Well, let me get Damon's question since I missed it. Sorry. It was, when did you ask your question? It's got to be way back here.
Yeah, he asked what's the best, most safe Terran build order that you encounter. I'm assuming you're talking about TBP.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I jumped over that. I remember reading that, and I thought we'd answered it, but we haven't. Sorry, yes.
And then, like, in that case, it's a very, I think the best opening is a very standard kind of, so in Brood War, it was called a FD Terran, or a fake double, where basically you just get one racks, one factory, but then you like continuously make Marines out of your first barracks, and then with your factory you get a tank and a vulture, and then you expand behind it. So then you can either choose to kind of pressure a little with your initial force of maybe 6-ish Marines, a tank and a vulture, or you can just use that to defend early Protoss pressure. You have a lot of Marines to defend against the possibility of Sentinels, and then you have early. Oh, so instead of getting fast siege, your first research will actually be mines, which are very effective in Starbow. So I think that's the most versatile opening in TPP.
Thank you. And here's a very general question. You also played a lot of ZVP. What do you think of the matchup and how do you play? I don't know if that might be like a whole other episode. Do you have any short general?
I'll try to keep it short. I I do enjoy playing ZVP, and PVZ. Although it seems like ZVP, the Zerg has a lot more options than the Protoss right now. The Protoss, I feel like you really have to tech to speed odds really fast because that's like the only way to defend against fast Hydras. But once you get past that, there's a lot of other things you can do during the mid game. Stargate with Sentinels is viable. You can go for Storm. You can go for even Reavers. I haven't done a lot with Reavers recently,
think-
but
I
with
think
the
he's
latest
talking about
patch.
Zerg versus Protoss, not Protoss versus Zerg, like from the Zerg point of view.
Oh, okay. So from the Zerg point of view, yeah. So like I said, there's a lot of things you can do. You can open mutas, and then use that to harass while building up to hydras. Oh, so like basically in like ZVP you have two like different tech paths. You have the hydras path, maybe with lurkers, maybe without, and then you have like the air muta path, and then they're quite easy to transition between both of them. And it's important to switch between both of them depending on what the Protoss is doing. For example, you open Hydras and then the Protoss gets High Templars and Storm, then you can switch to Mutas to try to pick off those High Templars. Or, maybe you open with Mutas and then they respawn with Corsairs, then you just switch to Hydras to take advantage of that.
There's the
So-
third. There's the third glorious option called Lurkers Zergling Scourge, but we can talk about that another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very nice and general answer to that. I actually, when it comes to ZVP, I have a little bit of experience myself there as well, but not as well. Fatsoni, I think, is just commenting more on his own questions. I think we're going to skip down to Alpha Squad. This is a very specific question. What do you think of the last change of Nerve Jammer? It was 75% damage reduction on all units before. Now it's 50% on a smaller area, only enemy units. Do you think this was a good change? And what do you think of this design as a whole?
Well, to be honest, I have not seen Nerve Jammer be used very much, if at all. I can't really remember the last time anyone has used it against me, so there's not too much I can comment, unfortunately, because I just haven't seen it be used.
I can actually comment a little bit on this because we used to have Starbow's been through a lot of phases, and a while back Nerve Jammer was actually all enemy units within Nerve Jammer can't attack, which is incredibly more buff than it is right now. And I remember we changed that to all units within Nerve Jammer can't attack, and then it just became useless or almost useless, because you usually keep your units on top of your opponent's units, and it just became like a free zone, unless you have a really good usage of range and micro. So I think I like the change personally. I actually wasn't involved in this change, but I like this change personally because it's clearer what's happening. That you're like I don't like some spells I like that it affects everything, like Storm and Plague. But Nerve Jammer, I really like the fact that it only affects the enemy units because it's such a small radius. I don't know, it just makes more sense in my head. That was a horrible answer, but since you didn't have one, I'll try to give one. But we'll keep an eye on Nerve Jammer. Let's just put it that way, since it's so new, the change. Okay, and Teddy Bear Toss again. Regarding PVZs, don't you think Protoss is highly limited regarding viable openings, since good Zerg players can defend the close Overlords before they morph into Overseers, so we cannot defend with High Templars? That was kind of a long question. I don't know if you got it.
So, yeah, I kind of do share that same sentiment that Protoss is kind of limited in openings. I felt like you really have to go speed lots fast to defend against Hydras. But however, with the recent balance changes, things are, I think, opening up the different options, and there's actually more and more different things you can do. Like recently in the last patch, Reavers were buffed, so I really want to try out more Reaver openings. And Corsairs just got their Disruption Web ability. So prior to this, Corsairs did not even have Disruption Web, and now that they do, maybe I want to mess around with that some more. So prior to the to the latest patch, I'd say yeah they were limited, but I think there's going to be a lot more viable options in the future.
And definitely the speed of the zealots, being changed as well, so you can poke earlier. Um, so yeah, that's one thing that we have. Let me just talk about this from a design perspective as well. That's one thing that we have. We got a lot of feedback, especially from the Axiom players, about Zerg. I mean, Protoss having a hard time in the early game versus Zerg to do anything, and and that's why we why we sorry, I'm just being so easily distracted. I'll just look another way. That's why we buffed the speed of Zealots, so you could do something early game. The Reaver was more of a general fix, just because the Reaver wasn't. It's kind of funny with the Reaver because in the beginning of like when Starbow became a little more popular than it was before, everyone wanted to play with the Reaver because it was such an iconic unit. And then all of a sudden, after a while, no one was using the Reaver anymore because they figured out that Sentinels are more effective or other units are better, and the Reavers are quite a bit weaker than they were in Brood War. So this buff now hopefully will bring a Reaver back more viable. Reaver play more viable again. Do you got time for more questions? There's a couple more here.
Yeah.
Cool. I think am I going to? I think we're on Alpha Squad's question now.
Okay.
He keeps asking questions. I know Alpha Squad though; he's a nice guy. What do you think of current TVP bio play? Do you think it's currently viable? I guess that's kind of hard for you to say since you don't play that much Terran anymore. Well, maybe you faced it as a Protoss.
Yeah, so I haven't faced it too much. I faced it maybe once or twice, and although it seemed kind of weak, I think okay. So the variants I faced were more kind of cheesy-ish 1 to 2 base timing attacks with just Marine medics, Marauders, Stim. I think a better way. So this is just purely theory crafting because I actually have not played against it or played it myself. But I think if you do if you mix in ghosts with that, it can become very viable. I know ghosts with shock are very very strong. I played against that a few times. So I mean I played against somebody who just pretty much went mass ghosts and vultures, and that in itself was very strong. And I was thinking, well, if they had used mixed in more other units such as Marines or tanks, it might have even been more effective. So I'd love to see people try it out. I think it has the potential to be very strong. I just haven't played with it that much.
I was giggling with excitement when Innovation was going bioplay versus Ryong in one of the games in the finals, and then he never made a single ghost, and I think that could have changed the game quite a bit.
I really think people should use ghosts more. They seem like they are really really strong. I just don't know why people haven't used it.
Like right now, it does require a factory. Now we have changed it, but we also brought back the secret drones. So once you get the ghosts out, they should be a little bit stronger as well. But the secret drones have been the secret drones we had were just imba, so we have changed that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean I'm talking more about just like a mid game, like mid to late game addition to your army, not just some kind of maybe cheesy opening.
Yeah.
So I don't even think the factory makes a big difference.
That's true. For those kind of strategies, it wouldn't. So next question: what do you think of lurkers in Protoss versus Zerg? A lot of people in the forums mentioning that lurkers don't have the same holding power as they did in Brood War. That's actually kind of been changed in the latest patch. Well, maybe not versus Protoss much. That's more versus Terran. But now the lurkers do stack, or can burrow closer to each other than they could before.
Yeah. So I do agree that lurkers do seem weaker in Starbow than Brood War. But I mean, this game is not the same as Brood War. It's not supposed to be exactly the same as Brood War, and it's okay that lurkers aren't as strong, because they still have their uses. They're very good against they're still very good against zealots, and they're still like their function is still the same. They're still a cloaked kind of siege unit, and Protoss still has to deal with them if the Zerg makes lurkers. So if you do strategies like Hydra lurk with maybe Scourge and Overseers to snipe the observers, it can be really really hard to deal with, and especially defensively, if you just put like 1 or 2 lurkers with a spine and spore at your expansions as Zerg, then the Protoss will have to make a big investment to harass them rather than just maybe send 3 stray zealots to harass your expansions. So yeah, they're weaker, but they still have a lot of good uses.
Yeah, actually versus Protoss, I feel the problem lately that people's been complaining about is lurkers versus Terran, actually, not versus Protoss. They still feel quite strong versus Protoss. But of course, it's not the same. Like your lurkers are quite different versus Protoss, because versus Terran you can just obliterate bio in a couple of shots if you're lucky. But you can't do that versus Protoss because all their units are stronger. So your lurkers needs the Hydra, Ling support. Maybe get some Scourges to snipe some Hydra to snipe some observers. So it does play out a little bit differently. What's the proper Zerg response to 2-gate Expo Zealot pressure? From Ninja David.
Yeah, so I played against that several times. There's various responses you can use. One is just to go mass lings. Zerglings are actually a bit stronger than they were in Brood War, and then I think Zealots are even a bit weaker. So the Zergling versus Zealot fight is more in favor of Zerglings, and if you just go mass Zerglings, you can overwhelm the Zealots, and then I mean it's up to you whether you want to make more to pressure the Protoss or just start teching up and macroing up yourself. The other response is to play a bit more defensively and just go straight for Hydras, which works too because you don't really even need a lair for Hydras. You just maybe rely on a spy and a few Zerglings with your queen until you can tech to Hydras. And then once you get speed Hydras, then that should be good against Zealots.
Yeah, if you have speed Hydras and you lose the Zealots, you have to learn to kite the Zealots in the micro with the Hydra dancing. And so I was actually kind of surprised by that because I would have responded to that question quite differently. But a lot of Zerglings, that's interesting.
I mean, how would you have responded?
I would have. Okay, that's a 2-gate Expo Zealot for sure. I would probably respond with more spines and spores. Not spores, more spines and queens and some Zerglings. I just go panic mode usually. So, but yeah, just focus on the Zerglings. That's an interesting response. I'll try and remember that. So we have a very general question. It's a serious one from Rebuffering, but it's very general. He says he's 16. What am I saying? I'm getting tired here. Sorry, 0-15 versus you. Oh, he wants to beat you.
Yeah.
I thought he was talking about general, but he's talking about you as a Terran. How do we beat rsvp as a Terran? Well, actually, I think. Sorry, I'm not gonna answer the question for you. But the last game we watched with Dirtybag here, he did beat rsvp, and I think you can take some knowledge out of that, I guess.
I think the strongest tool a Terran has right now is to use mines and vultures and mines very well. So get a lot of vultures, get your macro up to be, just work on your macro and be able to get a lot of units out, and then focus on, harassing and being aggressive with vultures. I think that's the biggest key for beating me or any other Protoss right now.
In Starbow, as in Brood War, there's always, in every matchup, you have like a default aggressive player, and if the default aggressive player is not being aggressive, he's going to lose. And in PvT, that player is Terran. Like, if Terran does nothing and just lets Protoss sit there, a good Protoss player will expand, take the whole map, build up a huge army, and just kill Terran eventually. So in PvZ, it's the other way around. It's Protoss that needs to be aggressive and Zerg that can sit back. So it's different for each matchup, but the default aggressive player needs to be aggressive. That's kind of a bad answer, but yeah. Okay, there's a kind of a spread out question from Dude707 here. Do you like Sai? Is Sai a good player?
Yeah, Sai is a great player. He's one of the better Zerg players right now. There's not much else to say. I guess the only thing is he does have a quite unique play style compared to other players. I think he's a very, very smart player. He does lots of cute moves like you mentioned Dirtybag doing, but there's not really any other way to answer that question. And I think he also asked why did I lose in the tournament. Well, I played against some players who were better than me and played better that day.
I kind of feel a little bit bad for letting TT1 play versus you, even though he came way too late.
Oh no, it's okay. I think it's better just to have the games be played rather than not. And if I want to touch more on those games, to be honest, I didn't get a chance to practice my ZVP that much, and he was just I just wasn't as prepared for the ZVP matchup as I had hoped for.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us in some information there. So that was your question, Dude 707. I'm sorry we were a little bit behind the questions here because right now there's a lot more chat than there is questions, I think. Okay, I think that's it for questions. Any other questions that I haven't answered, or that RSVP hasn't answered? I haven't answered too many. I'll just throw up some general information while you might post some more questions. Just reminding everyone that we have a ladder. Probably everyone here knows about it though, but we have a ladder on starbowmod.com. Feel free to use that. If you have any technical difficulties using the ladder system, post in our forums. We are usually pretty good at solving that. We have like a bug report thread. There's going to be a tournament tomorrow starting at 6 p.m. CET. It's not going to be streamed here. It's going to be streamed over at Base Trade TV. I think that's about it for now. Thanks a lot, RSVP, for coming on. You've been here for almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
And
no problem. Thanks for having me on the show. It was fun.
actually, there's a couple of questions I did miss. I
Oh.
remember one question I missed, and I can answer
Sure.
that one. And there's one for you as well. And that is, the first one is, any plans to implement the moving unit blocker to spread out moving units more? And I would love to see that. I saw December's Com working more on that as well. And December's Com also has another way to spread out units, which was kind of neat. December Comms isn't as, I'm going to say this, he just likes to work in the editor. He doesn't necessarily work a ton with Starbow. He just works in the editor and does all sorts of crazy stuff and makes all sorts of crazy things in the editor. So I'm gonna have to touch bases with him again because he's kind of been out of the loop for a little while. So I'll get back on that because I really want that in the game. That's not a lot of other people. Let me ask you that question because this is an interesting question. I wanna hear from you. Right now, the units, when they stand still, they spread out unless you have them in hold position.
Mhm.
But when you move them to places, they clump up a little bit more.
Yeah.
What if the units were clumped up when they stood still, but when you move them, they start to spread out? How would you feel about that?
So that would be more similar to brood war behavior.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Not as similar, like they wouldn't go on a long Congo line right away. They would just spread out just slightly, not messing up with micro or natural splitting or anything, just,
I can't really say that one is better than the other. They're just different. They're just different AIs. I mean, I'd have to play both. Just to have any opinion on it. It. I mean, it worked in Brood War. People love Brood War, and right now, I don't really see anything wrong with the current behavior of units being spread out when they're standing still. So I can't say that it's bad right now. Yeah, I don't know.
That's probably something we would, we've been talking a lot about making a test map with some things we want to try out, but we don't want to implement it right away. The only reason that test map haven't been made, I think, is just because Cabell is very busy.
Yeah, I mean, are there any are there any complaints about it right now? Do people not like something
No,
that's going
there's
on? Or
been no complaints. It's just something that we have been working on for a long time before it got popular, and we kind of
I
wanted to
see.
finish it.
Oh, okay.
And I would love it because I really like the idea that if you just A move, your army will be in a worse position than the defending army. And it's kind of true right now, but it will be even more so true if they start to spread out more naturally when you A move. So you have to like set up the attack before you initiate it. I really like that kind of game design, but some people might find it annoying though. I have no news about the carrier, but what I have some news about is I have actually talked to Blizzard. Like, we had a Skype meeting actually about the ladder and stuff like that. And the good news is there's no way Blizzard are going to shut down our ladder anytime soon.
That's
I don't
good to hear.
I don't have any like really hard news because we're going to make Blizzard is going to send us like a license or a contract kind of thing. We're going to look it over it and then we're going to discuss it from there. So I can't like say what will happen or not because we haven't seen that yet. But like they're very positive in general. And I've also asked them some favors. We pointed out some bugs that we want to get fixed to help Starbow be better, just general game bugs and other things. Like the fact that when you press the link, the game speed isn't normal and things like that. And I've been meaning to ask them about the carrier as well, because the carrier is right now hard-coded to behave in a way we don't want, even though it was supposed to behave the Brood War way. So once I get back to on basis with Blizzard, I'll actually ask them about the carrier. I won't, if it happens, it won't happen soon, just pointing that out right away. If you could choose to one unit to add or remove from Starbow, what would that be? That's a question for you, I think.
One unit to add or remove?
Yes.
Oh. Huh. I really don't have an answer for that. uh, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Maybe I can bounce you some ideas.
I don't know if I have an answer to that as well. Actually, I was for the longest time I was really iffy about Marauder and Roaches in Starbow.
Oh,
For
yeah. I
the,
guess now that you mentioned that, sorry to interrupt, but
no problem.
roaches, I don't really like roaches right now. They don't really seem like, okay, at least in ZVP, I don't really feel like they're that useful. Um, I guess supposedly they're supposed to be kind of like a tanky unit to help against zealots, but no, they're lurkers which just kill zealots.
Yeah.
Or I guess the only like, I mean, you can do cute things with burrow and burrow move with them maybe, but that's a bit like like it only has like a really like cheesy use and not like a standard army use. So I guess if one would be to be removed, I guess I would have to say roach.
Okay, that's a fair answer. I can almost get behind on that, but and Roaches is definitely a unit we'll be looking more into. It's the toughest units for us has always been the StarCraft 2 units. The Brood War units has always been very easy to handle and balance in the StarCraft 2 units because we want to get as much StarCraft 2 as we can in here. We don't want to have it like StarCraft 2 Brood War. We want to have something unique, and it's always been difficult. I think we're gonna stop here regardless because we've been going on for 2 hours. So even though there's more questions, I think we're just gonna draw the line right here. Also, in half an hour, I think Shoutcraft will do a one of their clan wars, and there will be Starbow there as long as one of the teams don't win 4 games in a row, because I think it's map 5 or something that's Starbow. So feel free to tune into that. I can't talk. The stream is on MLG. So thanks again, rsvp, for joining us today, for your good answers and thorough analysis. I will get this stream up on YouTube in hopefully good quality. It's probably going to be in 2 parts because I had to restart the stream, but whatever.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
Great. See you all. Thanks for good questions, and hopefully I'll get one of these shows up again sometime. I'm not going to have a set schedule just because I'm so busy, but whenever I can find an opening, and whenever I can find another good player to invite, I'll do so. Take care.
Yeah, bye.